We are not listening your voice, madam.
For our house rules and reminders, kindly ensure that you're on mute and your speakers are turned up. If your bandwidth allows, feel free to turn on your camera. You may also type your questions and comments in the chat box. And this session will be recorded and this will be shared to the participants.
It's come and going. Just click on the link. Link, click பண்ண it is going.
Again, for our house rules and reminders, please ensure that you're on mute. Also, ensure that your device speakers are turned up. Feel free to type questions or comments in our chat box, and a recording of the session will be shared with the participants afterwards.
In 2012, I launched the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, SDSN. The goal was to create a global network of research centers, universities, and technical institutions to help find solutions to advance sustainable development. The world's universities have a crucial role to play in helping us to build a more sustainable future. And as a university student, you can play a big role too. I'm proud to support the SDG Students Program, SDSN Youth Global Initiative to engage students in higher education with the Sustainable Development Goals. Through the creation of SDG student hubs on universities around the world, through the SDG Students Program, you will learn about the principles of promoting sustainability and of global citizenship and have the opportunity to use this knowledge to address local challenges in your community. I encourage young people in universities all around the world to join the SDG Students Program and the SDG Student Hub on your campus and work with one another to improve your communities. I firmly believe in the important role you can play to help solve some of our world's biggest problems, and it all starts with this single step. Change the world starts on your campus with you, and I look forward to hearing about all the great work you will do through the SDG Students Program.
Hi, I'm Jeff Sachs, Director of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and absolutely delighted and thrilled with the leadership of SDSN Youth, a global movement of young people all over the world on campuses in all parts of the world, championing the Sustainable Development Goals. This is your generation's challenge: how to make a world that is prosperous, that ends extreme poverty, that is fair, and that is environmentally sustainable. The world has set goals, but goals don't achieve themselves. They need your leadership, your ideas, your energies, your organization, your advocacy, your entrepreneurship. And that's why SDSN Youth exists. And the SDG student program of SDSN Youth on your campus enables you to participate in solving the world's great challenges, whether in your local community or at a global scale. The SDG Hub is a place for you to bring new ideas, new solutions, energy, organization, to meet friends and colleagues that are committed like you to making the world a better place, to achieving the goals that we have all set together and that are so vital for our well-being. Please join SDSN Youth, and please join the SDG Hub. It'll be extraordinarily exciting, and you'll have a huge contribution. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us in Zoom. Welcome to the Asia Pacific Youth Assembly 2023. My name is Trina, and I'll be your host for today. while I'm checking our Zoom attendance, we're already past 300 inside the Zoom. And I am very, very excited to see that we're very diverse in this call. So, to get this started, let the emojis fill our screens as we acknowledge the participating countries. So, I hope you guys are ready. Can I get a thumbs up from those in Australia and Bangladesh? Do we have participants from Australia and Bangladesh? All right. How about red hearts from Fiji, Hong Kong, and Indonesia? Okay, why not getting party poppers from Japan, Nepal, and New Zealand? All right, can I get wow reactions now from Philippines and Singapore? Okay, how about clapping hands from Vietnam and South Korea? Last, but definitely not the least, let's get thumbs up from participants joining from Cambodia and India. Great. All right. I'm loving everyone's energy so far. So, what a way to celebrate today's International Youth Day as well. I understand that we are such a big group here, and I would like to request for everyone to type in a greeting in your local language in our chat box. It can be good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or hello in your local language. Let's see how diverse we truly are in this call. Oh wow, this is very interesting. Like a lot of local languages and greetings in local languages popping up in our chat box.
Suprabhat.
Keep them going. Well, it's really beautiful. We also have
Hello ji.
yes. All right. So, to official, thank you very much for sending in different greetings in your local languages. So, to officially welcome us, let us welcome with a virtual round of applause Mr. Luis Noda, the Vice President of Habitat for Humanity International Asia Pacific Office, for his welcome remarks. A virtual round of applause, please. Luis, take it away.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It's so good to be here at the Youth Assembly, Asia Pacific, present here, and fantastic to see that we have more than 300 participants. I just want to tell you all youth members of this assembly today, you're not the future of Asia Pacific. You are the present, and you can change the circumstances in Asia and the Pacific. So I'm so thrilled. I am so excited of joining you today and giving you the welcome and the first words about this assembly. This initiative is part of the Housing Forum. Sorry, I got my microphone muted, so I'm getting back. I hope that you can hear me okay. I just want to mention that this initiative is part of the Urban Forum, the 8th Urban Forum of Asia Pacific, as well as the 9th Housing Forum of Habitats here in Asia and the Pacific. What I want to convey to you is that the need for decent housing, for adequate housing, cannot be more important nowadays than any time in the previous years. The deficit, the gap on the deficit and the need of adequate housing has been expanding in our region, in Asia and the Pacific. Let me give you some numbers. Before we started with COVID-19, or before COVID-19 took a hold of the entire world and our region, it was estimated that 1.6 billion people didn't have access to adequate housing in the world. Today, the projection is that by the end of the decade, this means 2030, there will be 3 billion people that will not have access to adequate housing. And this is alarming because it's a crisis of adequate housing that we are living on. The pandemic has exacerbated the differences between the rich and the poor. And what we have seen is a gap, an increase in the gap between people that are living in poverty and those that are well off. The other thing that we have seen is that because of the negative impacts of the supply chains in the market and everything, the affordability of housing has been put at risk. Many people do not have access to adequate housing because they cannot afford it in current circumstances. And then the other thing that we are seeing is an increase of the negative consequences of climate change. Climate change for us translates into extreme weather, whether these are droughts or these are floods, but we can see the devastation that this weather phenomena, natural phenomena can have, and it's impacting more the vulnerable people than those that are having adequate housing. So people that didn't have adequate housing before the catastrophe, once the catastrophe comes in, they are more vulnerable, and then they suffer the losses because of the vulnerability that they started from. So I'm just mentioning some facts to you because this is the world in which we are living now. And these are the current circumstances that we as Habitat, and together with our friends that are part of this initiative, are trying to put a solution into. And then the other thing that we are seeing as well in the region is that we have become more of an urban type of population in the region rather than rural. Back in 2019, the region, Asia Pacific, has become more urban than rural. And this trend is continuing for the foreseeable future. And what we see in some of the cities where we live in is that there's a flocking in of people that end up in informal settlements. And then they end up having problems of adequate housing as well. Why am I mentioning all of this to you? Because as I said in the beginning, you are the present of this region. And because of your enthusiasm and your creativity and your years that you have ahead of you, you can be part of the solution of this bigger problem that we as the older generation are trying to start up. So I trust in your vitality. I trust in your innovation. I trust in your agency. And I trust as well in your commitment in order to mobilize among yourselves and find solutions to the problems that we are facing now and to the problems that we will be facing in the future. I cannot be more encouraged to have all this amount of youth attendance today. And with that, I don't want to take too much time, but just want to congratulate you for being present today, for your commitment, your heart, your mission, your passion to see a better world. That is very important. I was your age. And, I can tell you that if you work hard, if you look for solutions, if you get associated with the right people and continue moving forward, the solutions will come and you will be part of finding those solutions. So I just want to welcome you again to this assembly. I welcome you with enthusiasm, as I said, and I look forward to the discussions and the conclusions that will come out of this. So thank you very much. I'm glad to be here with you, and I'm so enthusiastic of launching this assembly today. Back to you, Trina.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luis Noda, for that very passionate welcome remarks. At this point, we'd also like to welcome with another virtual round of applause, Mr. Kwang Hoi Lee, the National Director of Habitat for Humanity Korea, to give us an opening message. Sir Kwang Hoi Lee, take it away.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Oh, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Anyway, this is KH from Seoul, Korea. First of all, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to everybody who are attending at Youth Assembly today from all over the world. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate for your coming and joining us. This program is sponsored by Habitat for Humanity International and UNESCAP. So I'd like to extend my gratitude to both organizations and to Mr. Luis Noda also for his warm remarks. Indeed, this is an enormous and a momentous occasion for all of us. I'm really honored to be here with you to discuss about some compelling issues. Maybe that is one of the most important and urgent issues we have to deal with immediately. That is the issues for adequate housing. Without adequate housing, I mean, if we do not have any proper strategies or solutions for adequate housing, then there will be a lot of problems which we cannot afford to ignore. That is the reason why we are here and to discuss about what the root causes come from. And also you learn a lot of insights from field experts. And also you have a chance to share your thoughts, ideas, and suggestions with your colleagues attending at this youth assembly program. I think today is like a beginning of our epic journey to the world, where everyone has decent place to live. Throughout this youth assembly program, please enjoy the session provided and make as many colleagues as you can, because I think they will be always with you during your journey to the world of equality and equity. Lastly, I'd like to emphasize one last thing. Please do us proud. We'll never forget your priceless endeavors and contribution. Thank you very much and God bless all of you. Okay, I back to Tina.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kwang Hoi Lee, for that opening remarks. To our participants, we are very blessed actually to have both of them provide us with the opening spiels. With our welcome and opening remarks, this might have already given you a glimpse of why we have such an event today. And so at this point, let me just quickly share my screen. Awesome. Okay. All right. So The Asia Pacific Youth Assembly is, again, as mentioned by Mr. Luis and Mr. Kwang Hoi, is organized by Habitat for Humanity in coordination with the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. This is with the valuable support of Asia Pacific Youth Environment Network, APN, Sustainable Development Solutions Network Korea, or STSN Korea, and United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth, or UNMGCY. Quick context though. On one hand, the Asia Pacific region is home to more than 2 billion people under the age of 30, and that is making up more than 50% of the world's young population. On the other hand, urbanization continues to be a growing trend in the world. So it is indispensable that this substantial population of young people is largely affected or going to be affected by the effects of urbanization. This is why we are here today. We want to talk about things that needs to be talked about, such as urbanization and housing crisis in the region. And we want to actively engage you, our youth, in the discussion and solution. So let me just quickly walk you through our roadmap just so you will have a better understanding of the whole Asia Pacific Youth Assembly. You might be interested to take note of the following important dates. So we opened the registration last June 15. On July 15, we started accepting submissions for the Youth Solutions Microgrant. On August 9, we closed the registration for the Youth Assembly. Today, as we celebrate the International Youth Day, we are having the online international session. A week after, on August 19, is our deadline for the Youth Solutions Microgrant application. And all these are leading up to the face to face event on October 22 in Suwon, South Korea. A month after, on November, November 22, we will be awarding the Youth Solutions Microgrant winners online. And we will be inviting everyone once again to join us for the sharing of these winners projects in December this year and April next year. So the online session that we are having today really aims to first kick off the Asia Pacific Youth Assembly, leading up to the face-to-face event on October 22. Second is to provide an overview of the various topics and themes of the Youth Assembly. And we also encourage the submissions, more submissions to the Youth Solutions micro grants. All right. So at this point, I am very thrilled to introduce our keynote speaker. She is our she is a sociologist and urban planner from Bogota, Colombia. She currently serves as the global director of urban programming at Habitat for Humanity International, a position from which she develops strategies, standards, guidelines, and tools to support the design and implementation of housing programs and projects for marginalized urban communities across the globe. With more than 15 years of experience in Asia and Latin America, predominantly with grassroots organizations, NGOs, and international cooperation agencies, Brenda has specialized in supporting community led housing processes and advocating for participatory urban policies and planning. Let's fill the screen with red heart emojis to welcome our keynote speaker for this morning or for today, Miss Brenda Perez Castro.
Thank you very much, Trina. And thank you everyone for being here. It's really a pleasure to see such a big group joining this assembly. My name is Brenda Perez Castro. As Trina introduced me, I work for Habitat for Humanity International, and I had the pleasure to live in Asia for around 7 years, and I still miss living there, the food there, the people there. I'm currently based in Colombia, my home country, and I'm talking from Bogota, so I'm 13 or 12 hours behind you, so it's good evening for me. Thank you for joining me. And today I just want to introduce some of the very key challenges that we see in the relationship between urbanization and housing. One of the key learnings that I've had through the years in which I've worked in housing and urban issues is that the more you know about the cities, the more sensitive you are to the everyday life of people. When you're a person who listens and who looks at what's happening in your city, you become an urbanist. Almost, you don't need a degree, but in a certain way, when you're looking at people, talking to people who are different from you in your own cities is the best way for you to understand what the issues are, and also a way to learn what solutions come to arise. So I just want to go through a presentation that I prepared for everyone today. And it's just highlighting some of the issues that I think are critical in urbanization. But I want to ask you before we begin, and you can use the chat box for this, what do you think is good about urbanization? Because we always assume that urbanization is an issue, that is a challenge, that it brings bad things. But I want you to just send some key ideas on what do you think is good about urbanization while I start sharing my screen. Can you see my screen now? So sadly, I cannot see what you're writing, but I will go through that as I advance in the presentation. So very first thing that I want to explain in a very simple term is what is it that we understand for urbanization? And these are images that you might have seen. These are images that I took myself from Myanmar and from Korea. And what this shows is that there are very different realities in Asia and across the world when you look at the rural areas and when you look at the urban areas. You might see that, of course, what urbanization means is that a lot of people and population is shifting from rural areas into urban areas or into towns or cities. But that shift brings a lot of changes in the everyday life of people. People might still be working, people might still be going out and having fun outside, but the way we do it and working, but the way we do it in rural areas and in urban areas is entirely different. The lifestyle that we have, the cost of living in a city is entirely different from what it is in the rural areas. So urbanization entails not only the change in the physical space, but also the way we think, the way we behave, the way we relate to each other, how strong our relationships are. In rural areas, traditionally, family is very important, the community ties are very important, but when you move into an urban area, these ties start to dilute a little bit. So that brings a lot of challenges, and normally we see that as a very negative process. But as you may have put already in the chat box, which I can't really see right now, let me see if I can see it. Not really, so I'm just gonna continue. But when you look at what happens in urban areas, you see as well, you see as well that there are good things. When you look at indicators of urbanization, you see, and the reasons why people move into cities, it is usually because there are more economic opportunities or because there are education opportunities as well. Education might be better, or there might be more diversity of opportunities. Also because if you have health issues, most likely the best opportunities that you have to get good healthcare is by going to a bigger town or going to a city. Also, something that appeals us from a city is that it's a diverse place. You would be seeing a lot of different people from all around the country or all around the world. And that's something that appeals us from a city. And that's one of the things that brings a lot of richness to those of us who live in cities. Also, it is a place from the economic point of view that brings a lot of productivity. So what we have seen, if you look at the indicators, if you study some of the reports on urbanization, what you will see is that those countries that have urbanized, they also grow very quickly, economically speaking. And in most countries and around the world, the GDP, so this is economic growth, the way we measure the economic growth, is 80% produced in cities. So this is a big reason to believe that urbanization is a good thing. And also because we have infrastructure, we have probably better internet, we have better roads, we have airports, etc. So those kind of things are what are appealing people to come to the cities. But at the same time, there are a lot of issues in the cities. And this is why I'm saying, if you keep your eyes open and if you listen to people, you will see a lot of the issues that we experience in cities. We see that cities are usually more polluted. There is, of course, overcrowding, a lot of people, a lot of congestion, the traffic is complicated. We experience this in all big cities. It might be more, we might have more insecurity, the cost of life is higher. We see that the environment is being damaged because of the presence of so many humans in such a small space. And also our way of life, despite being a place where there is so much diversity, we see as well that there is isolation. Of course, all these challenges and all these benefits are experienced different from city to city, from country to country, depending on how developed the countries are. The challenges are different. But I would like you to reflect a little bit about this, because not everything is bad about urbanization, but also there is a lot of challenges that we need to address. And it's important that we, all of us, we citizens, but you guys as youth and as children, you have to see how you experience the city and how you can transform it. And this is an invitation that will be helpful for the rest of the session today. So when I was mentioning what are the good things and the bad things about urbanization, if you notice, there are good things and bad things that can be measured in terms of social aspects, economic aspects, or environmental aspects. So cities might be good for having a good job and good income, but at the same time, cities might be very, there might be a lot of inequality. But you might see more in the social terms, you might see more diversity and more inclusion of groups that are different from our own. But at the same time, there might be more isolation. In terms of environmental dimensions, the city has a very good aspect, and it is that it makes a very efficient use of a space, which implies that there is less footprint, but at the same time, we also have more cars. We also are building much more, which has, of course, a footprint that is much higher than the rural areas. So the question here is urbanization a bad thing in itself? And I think we have debated a little bit on what's good and what's bad about it. But I think the key message here is that urbanization can be sustainable and urbanization can keep being a good thing and being improved if cities are well planned and well managed. And that depends on so many different aspects: political will, also how involved the citizens are, how developed the country is and the city, and how much economic growth the city is seeing. But at the same time, it is important to note that challenges differ according to the level of wealth, the size, the location, and the capacity of the city and the citizens. And this is very important. Whenever we think about development, we always think, oh, the government is not doing this or that, but it's important that we as citizens also think on how we're contributing to the good things and the bad things of our cities. So just to delve a little deeper in this idea on how cities are different depending on where you are. In the case of Asia, for example, the relationship between the size of the cities and the economic growth is telling us a lot about the difference of it's creating a typology on the different cities that we have. So we have emerging cities, which are those that have low income today, but are expected to grow in economic terms. But also the population is expected to grow. The challenges in urban areas for countries like this are huge because population are moving to cities, but also there is more wealth. So the question is, how are cities going to be ensuring that everybody is going to have the same quality of life and are going to profit from the economic growth in those cities? There are also thriving cities in Asia which have had a high income for a long time and are expected to keep having high income. So they are thriving in economic terms, but also we're seeing, for example, that there is a decline in terms of urbanization and in general in terms of population growth, such as the case of Japan and Korea. And those that we're calling the stabilizing cities, which have high income today, but will become low income growth in relation to the population growth in the future, such as some of the cities in Australia. So these differences is something that we take into account when we talk about urbanization. It's not the same across the world, it's not the same across countries, and it's not the same across even inside our country. So when you read the city, when you start understanding your own city, it's important that you look at what is the characteristic of my city. Is it growing? Is the economy working well? Is the population increasing or is it stagnant? So understanding economic and population dynamics is very important to know also what the solutions are. So when you see in Asia, there are two typical challenges that cities are facing right now. There are a certain group of cities that are shrinking, that are becoming older, and there is another group of cities that are growing. And the challenges often that you see in those growing cities have to do with increasing urban poverty and rising inequality, unemployment. So when people come to the cities, they're expecting to have a lot of job opportunities, but actually the type of opportunities that are arising in these cities might not be fitting the capacities of the people who are coming from the rural areas. Of course, a very key challenge is not having affordable housing for everybody who's coming to the cities. And I would say this is a challenge for both growing cities and shrinking cities, because in shrinking cities, you might have a housing that is available, but it might not be affordable, or it might not meet adequate housing standards. And in growing cities, usually, if people are coming too quickly to the cities, if the city is growing too quickly, the issue is that governments usually don't have the capacity to respond and provide the basic services that are required. In the case of shrinking cities, actually the issue is that infrastructure and the buildings are actually decaying and the population is decreasing. And that means also that the cities are having less money to invest in their own cities. So if you see, the challenges are very different. Now I'm gonna focus on housing. And what is important here is, this is a very complex subject, and I'm sure that you have experienced issues and you have seen issues of housing in your own cities. But I just want to highlight, what I think is the main tension between, or the main tension that makes housing such a big issue around the world. First of all, it's important to remind us that 80% of the built environment in many cities is actually housing. So when we are improving housing, we're directly improving the cities. Also, the role that housing has in the life of people. The housing is shelter, but it's also protection. It's also an asset, an investment, and is in many cases is also a source of livelihood. So that's why housing is so important, is because it's a key part of the space, but it's also a key part of people's life. But the main challenge is that in housing, it's difficult, or the challenge that is experienced in many cities is that when the housing is affordable, usually is not adequate. And when it is adequate, it's not affordable because of the way of the market. The way the market works, it makes housing such a desired good that the prices rise all the time. So it's very difficult to afford housing. And I think you might have experienced that directly, or your parents or your friends. Being able to afford living on your own or with your own family is always very difficult. So the balance between finding a good home that is not so expensive is the main challenge. The 30% that I'm highlighting here is an international standard that of course changes from country to country, city to city, but there is a standard that says that if you have to spend more than 30% of your income in housing, that is not affordable anymore. So this is a key item that you might use to think, is housing affordable in my city? And what does it mean to talk about adequate housing? This is a broad concept, but I will just highlight what are the main characteristics of what we call adequate housing. And this is a UN definition, but I think many of the organizations in the sector have adopted this definition. First of all, adequate housing implies that there is secure tenure. What that means is that people are not in fear of eviction. This happens differently in different types of housing. But if you, for example, are not able to pay rent and the law is not protecting you, and maybe the landlord just wants to kick you out and the landlord can do it, the law is not protecting you from an eviction, and that means that you don't have security of tenure. Or, for example, if you live in an informal settlement, or the way it's called in many places in Asia, a slum, in many cases, people occupy land without a permission, and then the government would come and say, you cannot live here. And then that means that you don't have security of tenure. Also, making sure that houses are habitable. So that means that they can protect you from the wind, from an earthquake, from the elements in general. So that the materials that are used for building the house are durable and that they will last and endure is one of the key characteristics of adequate housing. That is affordable, as I was mentioning, 30% is one of the indicators. That they're located in a place that is not risky. Many houses and many informal settlements in Asia and also here in Latin America are located in areas that are at risk of being washed away or being in a flooding area or in a place where there might be some landslides. The location of a house is very important because now with climate change and the impacts of climate change, we're seeing that the houses, and especially people who live in poverty in housing that is not adequate, they're more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Also that, of course, you have access to basic services, that's power and water and sanitation, and that people with disabilities can access those housing, can access the housing units. And the last but not least is the cultural adequacy. And what that means is that sometimes when you move, for example, from the rural areas into a city, what happens is that you realize that you're going to be living in something that looks like a shoebox, and you cannot live there, and you're super sad there because it's simply not a place where you can thrive, where you feel that you can be yourself. And that is because in your culture, you need more space, for example. So taking into account the cultural backgrounds of the people is very important when they move to cities. So what this means, and I think I've implied a lot of the main aspects on how adequate housing contributes to sustainable cities. When we say that housing has to be resilient to potential disasters or catastrophes. When we say that, we're talking about the potential impact that we would be preventing with adequate housing that would make a sustainable city resilient and sustainable as well. When we work in making sure that people have secure tenure and that they can stay in the land that they occupy or that they are not going to be evicted, we're making sure that the city is being just to their inhabitants. So if you see, and this is an exercise that I would like for you to do after we finish this session, is doing this reflection, how these different dimensions of adequate housing actually contribute to sustainable cities. But beyond that, and this is part of a report that we prepared for our global campaign on informal settlements, this report, and I recommend you read it, this report is demonstrating how if we have adequate housing, specifically in informal settlements, we would be having an impact in health, education, income and living standards, and beyond that, on climate justice, gender equality, and political inclusion. And how those connections work is marvelous. It's very interesting, and I really recommend that you read this report. But one of the results that we obtain is that if adequate housing was reached in informal settlements at the national level, we could see an economic growth of up to 10.5 of the GDP. We could expect the life expectancy to go up to 4%, adding 2.4 years in global average. And we could avoid 738,000 preventable deaths. How that is? Because if housing conditions are good, people live better and are able to access health, access basic services that would prevent them to get sick, would allow them to feel safe, to work, maybe in the neighborhood or maybe inside the house. And also we could see how this could have an impact, especially in youth, in terms of how accessible schools would be and how much kids could stay enrolled in education because they have good housing. So these relationships are fascinating to see, and this is demonstrated all around the world. I really encourage you to read this report. So my final reflections, and I'm sorry if I took a bit too long, is just emphasizing that adequate housing contributes not only to urban sustainability, to the broader concept of human development, so to improve people as a whole in all our dimensions, and also to achieving SDGs. The second one is that, and this is my key message that I've been saying throughout my intervention, is that it's key that you and all of us as citizens, but you specifically, because youth and children are still paying attention to everything that happens around you. It's important that you pay attention, listen, talk to people, read what's going on in the news, but also go out in the markets, in the streets, and talk to people to understand your city much better. And from there, you can work directly with communities and advocate for adequate housing and better public spaces for youth and children, better conditions for all citizens, because if a city is a healthy place for children, it is a healthy place for everyone. And I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much. And I guess back to you, Trina.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brenda, for providing such an insightful session about urbanization. I do understand that urbanization and housing is such a complex topic. So we do thank you for explaining how both are actually connected to sustainable cities, to sustainable communities, and how we can contribute, and also the resources that you have shared as well to provide a better understanding with the connection of the two. So at this point, we have, before we begin, can we give another virtual round of applause for Brenda for sharing with us about urbanization and housing? I do hope that our participants were able to take one or two important takeaway from Brenda's very insightful session. Thank you, Brenda. And at this point, we have reached our breakout sessions. So right now, we will be wait a second. We will have 20 minutes for the speakers discussion, and we have 10 minutes for reflection in each breakout room. Our main question for the synthesis will be what are your key takeaways from the sessions? And then we'll go back to the main plenary and share highlights from the breakout sessions. Okay, so we are very lucky to have this pool of speakers to really help you polish your project ideas or your existing projects. We have here we are presenting here photos of our speakers who will be joining us in our breakout. Clarence Lee is the Senior Manager of Programs and has led the programs team in Habitat for Humanity Hong Kong since 2020. He also has experience working for one of the largest foundations in the world, and he will be speaking about budgeting and fundraising from both a funder's and practitioner's perspective. So that's a very interesting topic to learn more about to help us with our project ideas, or if we already have existing projects. Next up is Christine Tuban. She is a development practitioner and gender advocate from the Philippines. She has built quality management systems for humanitarian and development programs across Asia, spanning a wide range of sectors, including health, livelihood, shelter and settlements, protection, and gender. She is currently the Associate Director of Monitoring, Evaluation, Accountability, and Learning at HFHI Asia Pacific. Christine also co-chairs Kaleidoscope Group, an employee resource group working towards raising awareness on safe and inclusive sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, or SOGI, in the workplace. During her free time, Christine looks after her seven feline children, runs a startup cafe, and practices astropsychology. Last but definitely not the least, joining us today is Tripti Mahaseth. She is a policy and advocacy manager at Habitat for Humanity Nepal and Habitat for Humanity International Asia Pacific. She is an architect, an urban planner with interest and experience in research based policy solutions and interventions for adequate land and housing, with a focus on gender and social inclusion, climate resilience, and partnerships. We're now inviting you to enter the breakout rooms, and we'll see you again in 30 minutes. Enjoy your breakout sessions. Thanks, everyone. Please just give us a few minutes. You will be assigned in your breakout rooms. Some of you are already in the breakout rooms. We're just waiting for everyone to be in their designated breakout rooms. Welcome back. While waiting for the others to join, we're inviting those who are already here in the main room to open their cameras, and one of our colleagues will start taking screenshots for photo documentation. Again, for those who just joined the main room, we're inviting those who have enough bandwidth to open their cameras, and one of our colleagues will start taking screenshots for photo documentation. One, two, three, smile. Another slide. One, two, three. Smile, everyone. This is gonna go on for a few more minutes. One, two, three, smile. Again, we're requesting everyone who are not speaking to mute themselves in the call. Okay, one last. One, two, three, smile. Okay, I'm very thrilled to hear about how the breakout sessions were for you. I hope you had a very meaningful and fun sessions during your breakout room. And at this point, let's have a quick synthesis on the different highlights that you had in each of your session. Let me call on Prisha Kumar to share the highlights in your breakout rooms sharing.
Thank you, Trina, for giving me the floor. And huge shout out to everyone, all the youth participating in for your active participation, even in the breakout rooms and the main session. And the breakout session was very interesting, and we got to hear perspectives from many youth. And the main takeaways which young people had was that the sessions provided a new perspectives on urbanization and back that with different facts and data as well. So that kind of generated a new perspective. And for this session specifically on budgeting and fundraising, it was very interesting to see that we had young people who were pursuing finance and economics related subjects and those who were not, and it was helpful for both for all everyone, and they got to learn about how to strategize and develop a logical framework and use their existing resources to actually achieve the desired outputs. So it was a very informative and engaging session. Thank you, Trina.
Thank you, Prisha. It's very exciting how you're already using some technical terms, I see, when you were sharing about the budget and fundraising. So I can imagine that Clarence did a really good job in your breakout room. Thank you, Prisha. Let me call on Lee Tran to share about the highlights in your session. Lee Tran, take it away. Is Lee Tran here? Yep. Take it away, please. Lee Chan, you're on mute. If you can unmute yourself. You're still muted. Okay, while we are fixing some technical issues with Lee, let's just quickly call on Stacy Che to share with us the highlights in your breakout session. Stacy?
We're talking about the campaign implementations.
Mm-hmm.
And We are talking about mainly the policy and advocacy, which was important for preparing for the project. And many youth here shares their projects, they're preparing projects also. And they also said it was really helpful to prepare for, reflect their advocacy and policy part and many diverse aspects to preparing for urbanization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stacy, for sharing your group's highlight. I hope Litran's technical issue has been resolved.
I will be stepping in to summarize the monitoring and evaluation
Okay.
portion, if that's all right.
Go ahead, Kyle.
So we had on monitoring and evaluation, we had some general questions on how it can be used as basically a basis for starting a project and finding basically the needs for such a project, and the role of monitoring and evaluation, or MEAL as it includes kind of the greater background of that, is it helps come with kind of technically sound ways to collect and analyze data, to where you're not just kind of going with the flow and making up things as you're going along, as you're thinking of suitable interventions to address specific identified problems. And these can it can be important to take in culturally appropriate and kind of solutions that are consulted with the communities beforehand. You're not making decisions on what is important for beneficiaries. You're working with them as you go along. And to create projects with MEAL in mind, monitoring and evaluation, you have to kind of really be specific on these kind of systems for monitoring and implementation.
Thank you very much, Kyle, for sharing. It's very interesting how, despite we have a very short session for our breakout session, we were still able to learn a thing or two about the different parts of project implementation. And we do hope, and there's a lot of hope from us, that these sessions will be helpful as you think about your project idea or even polish your existing projects. We hope that this will be inspiring enough for you to submit project proposals for the Youth Solutions micro grant, which will be due on 19th of August. At this point, can we give ourselves a big virtual round of applause for staying and also for listening in as much as we can in our breakout sessions? Yes. Thank you very much. At this point, let's welcome Boram Kim, the Senior Director of the Volunteer and Institutional Engagement of Habitat for Humanity International, for her closing remarks. Virtual hand, please.
안녕하세요. Hello, everyone. Greetings to everyone joining online in today's international session in the run-up to the Youth Assembly to be held in October in Korea. Before everything, I would like to congratulate every young person in this group on today's International Youth Day celebrations. I would also like to thank for everyone's active engagement in today's session, and very much look forward to our dynamic exchange of views and perspectives in in-person gathering in the Youth Assembly in October in Suwon, Korea. The UN estimates that more than half of the people on this planet are under 30 years old. And that means you are one of the 2 billion young people in the region of Asia and the Pacific. Moreover, if you ever helped your neighbors or communities of similar interest or cause, or actively advocated for something for a better future, You are one of the 600 million young people around the world. Evidence shows that young people often experience their first civic engagement opportunity through volunteering. When it comes to engagement, solidarity, and innovation for a better future, the role of young people, your role, is very important. Humanity is facing the hottest temperature in the places where nowadays is summer. In the face of climate change, building and improving climate resilient housing that promotes sustainability is no longer a choice. It's a requirement. Habitat for Humanity is on the front line to lead such important work around the world by mobilizing people and support, including in this region. At its core, challenges identified by young people, solutions shaped by young people, and actions taken by young people are the drivers for real change when it comes to sustainable and affordable housing. In this context, would you like to position youth as key stakeholder group on the issue of sustainable and affordable housing? Do you have bold solutions to offer for your own future in solidarity with others who would need decent homes? Are you thinking of ways to take innovative actions to shape the future with other fellow youth and for youth themselves as part of a global housing community? Then why don't you consider applying for the Youth Solutions microgrants that Habitat for Humanity launched last month? As you might have heard from today's session, the deadline is approaching quickly. It's in about a week, 19th of August this year. As I'm sharing my excitement to work alongside with each and every one of you as an important actor in this discourse, let me conclude by sharing a quote by Nelson Mandela, who said, "Action without vision is passing time. Vision without action is merely daydreaming. But vision with action can change the world." Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Boram, for that closing remarks and also for really the push for the participants to submit their applications for the Youth Solutions Micro Grant. Just to really quickly, we wanted to also provide with you some brief information about the Youth Solutions Micro Grant. We do hope, we aim that the micro grant will definitely harness youth solutions through mentorship from international experts to strengthen their ideas, provide seed funding of 2,000 US dollars to 5 youth solutions that promote a more innovative, inclusive, and collaborative housing ecosystem for sustainable urban development. And this will also provide us the opportunity to invite 10 youth-led organizations to be part of the Youth Assembly Suwon in South Korea to network and showcase their solutions to actors in the housing and urban sectors across the Asia Pacific region. This microgrant will only support solutions that are developed and managed by the youth for the benefit of the community where they operate. And the age definition that is used by Habitat for Humanity to characterize youth is a person who is between 18 to 30 years old. I believe that you will be directed to a link to know more information, to get more information about the Youth Solutions Micro Grant. So we're highly encouraging all the participants to submit before our deadline on the 19th. You are also welcome to take a photo or screenshot the slide that is projected now so you can get back to it and revisit it. All right. So at this point, we're down to our end of the Youth Assembly of the Asia Pacific Youth Assembly international online session. We are inviting everyone to please answer the evaluation forms, and we will be basing your certificate from the evaluation forms that is being sent in our chat box. So again, we're inviting everyone to please quickly answer the forms, and we will be able to, we'll use the information that we'll get for the certificates to be distributed few days after. Kindly click the link that is being sent in the chat box now. And we will be using the information we're collecting from the links to, yes, to generate your certificates for attending our session. Thank you very much once again to everyone for joining us today as we celebrate the International Youth Day, and also for helping us kick off our Asia Pacific Youth Assembly. We do hope that we'll get more project proposals for the Youth Solutions Microgrant, and we will be able to select more participants to join the face-to-face event that's happening on October 22 in Suwon, South Korea. Thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.